Hey, good morning, everybody. It is Saturday morning, and this is MultiFamily Unplugged. Glad that you are here today. This is going to be raw, unscripted conversation about multifamily real estate, multifamily investing, investing in general, how the markets are and how the business is. I'm glad that you're here this morning. Hey, if you're somebody that's new to the show, you might want to go wake somebody else up, stick a cup of coffee in their hand, let them know that we're live and that we're going to bring some great content this morning. I'm excited about our guest today, but I'll get to that in a minute. So, I always start my show and I want to know what your intentionality is. What did you do intentionally this morning? Did you just sleep in maybe? Maybe you got up early and you spent some time in your daily disciplines. What are those? Are you focused on meditation or prayer? Are you starting your day off with gratitude? Are you working out? What are your intentions? And then in your business, what's your intentions in your business? Are you moving forward with acquisitions? Are you looking for property? Are you underwriting deals? What are you doing to grow your multifamily business? Well, I want to help you with your intentionality. So if you have questions or anything that you need to work on, please reach out to me, connect with me either by email or connect with me on social media. Speaking of social media, I hope that you are following me on LinkedIn or Instagram, any platform where you get your social media fix. If you're watching us live this morning and you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. We're here every Saturday morning bringing great content from a great multifamily investor, a good conversation about how to grow your business. And if you're watching us live on LinkedIn or Facebook, I'm glad that you're here. And again, like I said, go wake somebody up. Today's show is brought to you by the GOB Network. And the GOB Network has a conference coming up in July 13th and 14th here in Chicago. It's going to be the largest multifamily live conference that Chicago has seen in quite some time. So I'd love for you to be there to take part in the event. I'd love to shake your hand and meet you in person. So, hey, without anything further, let me introduce our guest. I'm joined this morning by Jason Bellera. Jason is with Lark Capital Group. Jason has an interesting story. Been in the real estate space, construction and real estate, on and off, kind of just tinkering around for about 20 years. Left his W-2 job recently because he's been involved in multifamily for the last 2 years. And I'm going to let Jason talk to us a lot about that. So let me bring Jason in real quick. Hey, Jason, good morning.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me today. It's good to see you.
You bet. I hope I didn't get you up too early this morning.
No, good. I'm an early riser.
Yeah. Hey, Jason, one thing I like to do is start my show always by asking my guests in one word, what best describes you personally and professionally?
It's a hyphenated word, hard work.
Okay. All right.
I think that's
good.
That's probably what I would say comes to mind first.
And here's what I can say with confidence is I've been doing this. I'm a couple of years in, couple hundred episodes in on a few different platforms, doing these podcasts. I ask that question all the time. I think I'm going to write a book one of these days about the words people say and a little bit about the conversation.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is I can say pretty confidently that nobody's ever said hard work. Maybe a variation of it, but nobody has said that. So that's interesting. It boils down to work ethic sometimes, doesn't it?
I believe so. I think that's one of the things I learned from actually my uncle at a young age, that you can get a long way with work ethic. I think it only goes so far, but you can what you lack in talent, you can sometimes make up with work ethic.
Yeah. Did you ever see the movie Rudy?
To be honest with you, I have not seen that movie, and I know I should see that movie. But yeah. I know the premise of it.
Yeah, you should watch it. Boy, talk about a kid with nothing but heart. Too small to play, had some talent, but boy, he had heart, and that got him to play, at Notre Dame. So, it goes to work ethic. I think I learned work ethic, from my dad, like you learned from your uncle. And my dad was a hard worker, and I adopted that. wish I could say the same for my kids sometimes, but they're young, so
Yeah.
they'll get it.
Yeah. My kids are very young. I'm trying to instill it in them, but I think it's just still a little bit early.
Yeah, it's funny. So, listen, why don't you talk, for a couple minutes, talk about your background. You got a pretty interesting background. I'm intrigued by what you've done and how your background shows that anybody can go in the multifamily business.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So by my career, so outside of real estate, I'm a veterinary surgeon, and sort of to keep it brief, when I was younger, I always loved animals, and I always we grew up in cheap apartments, moved a lot. We didn't have a lot of money, so for whatever reason, what I took from that was I always wanted ownership. So there were sort of two things I knew at a young age. I knew that I loved animals, wanted to work with animals. I also knew that ownership made sense, right? I didn't want to live in somebody else's house. And so that manifested itself as me sort of going to vet school, becoming a veterinary surgeon, but also doing, as you mentioned in the intro, doing a lot of, hey, I want to own my own house, but I don't have the money, so I'm just going to buy something really cheap that needs to be fixed up. I worked with contractors. I got myself almost in that apprentice mode to learn construction, and did that many times over throughout my life. Fast forward to, and that was, like I said, always single family type stuff, live-in flips, house hacking, all of the things that have, kind of fancy acronyms for them now, but I was just kind of doing it as survival. And then about 2 years ago, I'm in a good place in my veterinary career, and I wanted to figure out how to become a more serious investor, basically, and find other streams of income. Sort of through podcasts and books, found my way into multifamily syndication. And then that's what I've been really focused on for the last 2 years. I did a mentorship, started, it was literally started right at the time of COVID. So networking then was a little bit harder, but it was just a matter of kind of, hey, talking to my mentor, who can you connect me with, and just trying to make as many at least virtual connections as I could to get myself into the space.
Interesting. So for the sake of our listeners, would you explain what syndication is? Are you ready to skyrocket your investment portfolio and leave a legacy? Are you tired of inconsistent returns received in the stock market? Then it's time you take a look at alternative investment options like a passive investment in multifamily real estate. No tenants, trash, or toilets. Just a solid return on an annual investment, including quarterly returns along the way. These lower risk and secure assets are also a great hedge against inflation. If you want to hear more about these types of opportunities, email me directly to schedule a 15-minute consultation to see if you qualify. You can email me at mike@mycoreintentions.com.
Yeah, absolutely. I look at it like very simplified, right? It's a way of buying something that likely one person couldn't afford on their own by grouping a bunch of people together. And so you're going to have the managing members who do sort of all of the work, if you will. And then you have the limited partners, and those are the investors, and they're going to, essentially front the money and put up or achieve returns based on their money invested. So at a very, and you can syndicate anything. We're talking about apartments, but you can syndicate. That's how a lot. My original knowledge in syndication was actually people buying sports teams. Groups buying sports teams. I didn't know that's what it was called, but usually when like I'm from Boston, the Red Sox got bought by a group. You hear about the John Henrys, but it was bought by a group of people. And those might be syndications, those might be joint ventures if it's a smaller number of people. But the idea is, in a nutshell, grouping your resources to buy something, sort of larger than you might be able to on your own.
That's interesting, and that's a great context, right? I mean, we live in this world or this bubble that we're in the multifamily business, but really you could syndicate so many different things. You could syndicate a sports team. You can syndicate, triple net deals. You could syndicate other commercial assets, or, a cruise ship, right? So much
Racehorses, people do it with racehorses as well.
Yeah.
It's
Airplanes. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I actually, that's funny you say racehorses. I had a guy on my show. I do a show on Thursday morning called Thursday Morning Live. And I really kind of focus on Chicago entrepreneurs or business owners,
Yeah.
Because that's where I'm from. And I had a guy on my show who owns a couple of racehorses, and he's got a couple of winners, which is interesting. And I'm not into that, but he did syndicate one of his horses. So it's funny you brought that up. But yeah, so. Coming from the world of being a vet, I'm sure you've seen your share of some horses, huh?
Yeah, a bit. When I was in vet school, I mean, generally, once you pass vet school, you sort of pick one space to work in, whether it's the large animal, which is like horses or farm animals, and then small animals, your dogs and cats, and kind of rabbits, hamsters, whatever else you want to put in that group. But yeah, so I haven't really worked as a veterinarian with horses since vet school. I have friends that have horses. I've always thought they were beautiful animals, but they're maybe bigger than I want to work specifically on. So they're nice to look at from a distance, I think.
It's interesting how you say that when you graduate vet school, you kind of pick a space to work in. It's kind of the same thing with real estate.
Yeah,
when you look at real estate, you've got residential, you got commercial, you've got retail, office, all kinds of asset classes. Then when you get in the multifamily bucket, you've got, workforce housing, you've got senior housing, self-storage, mobile homes, right? There's a lot of different assets in that bucket. Have you picked one specific asset, or what area are you focused on in multifamily?
Yeah, I'm very focused on that B and C class value add multifamily niche, if you will. I think that for a couple reasons. I'm in a self-storage deal. I think they are all valuable assets, but I think you have to look at what your investment goals are, right? So are you looking for as much cash flow as you can get? Are you looking for as much equity as you can get? Are you looking for some sort of combination of the two? And what do you have familiarity with, right? So I've lived in lots of apartments. I know how these things work. I know the construction side of things. So it makes sense to me to be working, because originally I thought I'd probably just do single family type, BRRRRs and long-term holds, but the scalability of multifamily it makes that much easier, especially if you're investing from a distance. So yeah, that for me, that's what works the best. But as you mentioned, there's a ton of different options.
So, my question was really going to kind of be like, why multifamily? What gets you excited about that? I think you kind of alluded to it when you talked about scaling it.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit for you and your business.
So at the start of this journey, like I told you, I wanted to be an investor, seriously, an investor. And my original thought was, I'm going to buy single family houses. I read David Green's book, Long Distance Investing. And I was like, because I live in California. And so it's hard to, it's not impossible, but it's hard to cash flow here. It's hard to, you're playing more of an appreciation game. And so I started to look at doing that from a long distance. I hadn't really considered that before. And then I actually went through sort of the process. I started talking to realtors about how I was doing the analysis on these. And it was like, okay, what do I need to do to get to, that passive income goal that I want? And, pick a number, say I want 100 houses. That takes a long time. Even if you're doing it, some people, they might flip 50 houses in a year. They might actually achieve those numbers, but you've got to build up to that. So it was like, how long is it going to take me to get 100 doors, single family doors? And then I learned about syndication and multifamily, and it was like, wait, I can do one deal and have 100 doors or 300 doors or whatever the case may be. And so it seemed, I think sometimes a lot of people will look at those numbers and say that's the same. It's not necessarily the same, right? Because you're not likely syndicating a single family home, whereas with multifamily, you are likely syndicating. And so you might not have as much ownership in that apartment building as you do in each house, but you have the ability to scale faster and have, so it's a percentage, a smaller percentage of a larger number, I guess is what I would probably the way I would put it. So that's what was appealing to me. Knowing that I have always been a DIY guy. I've done a lot of construction, and it was actually better for me to invest remotely in something that you're going to have a property manager, because otherwise I'm going to be there every day. I'm going to have my hands in it, and it's just it made more sense for me to go that route.
Yeah, I agree with you what you're saying about the economies of scale about that, because I always tell people, I say, look, you could have 10 single family houses, you got 10 roofs, 10 furnaces, 10 hot water heaters, 10 different locations you got to run around and do repairs on Saturday morning. Or you could have a 10 unit, one roof, one furnace, one hot water heater, one location to spend your time at. Yeah. And the worst part about it, and I always found this, and I've owned a lot of single family properties, and I've owned single family properties when the market hasn't been as robust as it is right now, where things stay occupied, a little bit more consistently. But, if you got a mortgage that's $2,000 and nobody lives there, it's a lot of pain on your pocket.
Big deal.
Right? Because, generally you're not cash flowing that. So if you're 20% vacant on a 10 unit, you can still pay your bills. Mm-hmm. So it just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Where do you, talk about markets for a minute? So long distance investing, where do you like to, because here's what caught my attention about that. You live in California, you only get appreciation long-term, right? I live in Chicago. The best we can do pretty much is cash flow, because we don't get much appreciation here.
Yeah.
But I don't invest here either. So talk about the market you like.
Yeah, I'm actually at the moment, I've been hyper focused on the Atlanta MSA for a couple of reasons. One is that's where I started to look for single family properties, because I had a friend who had actually she had moved from Los Angeles and became a realtor and was working and she was in Atlanta. So that's where that connection came in. Additionally, my mentor, she invests in Atlanta. So I had a few connections there and links to the team. Initially, when I started, I made what I think is a mistake. I started looking at probably 4 or 5 different markets, thinking that would increase my ability to get deal flow, which it certainly on the surface does, right? You're going to get more emails. There's more brokers to talk to, all of that. But at the end of the day, when you're starting out, really what you need one person to believe in you. You're not going to get 10 people to believe in you, 10 different brokers to send, you've got to focus and really learn one area and build a team there. And so that's what I've done. And it's been working really, really well to stay very focused on Atlanta, having, already have property manager there. I now know all the brokers. Like once you close some deals, deal flow, especially in that market, I don't want to say it's easy, but it becomes a lot more readily available. And so then you're just selecting which deals do I like the best versus I just got to get one, which is what a lot of people, I think, how they feel when they start out.
Yeah. And a lot of people, I think too, when they start out, they don't want to jump right in and do 100 or 200 unit deal, a 20, 40 unit deal. And if you're in 3 or 4 markets or looking at properties in 3 or 4 markets, to have a 20 unit and then a 40 unit in 2 different markets, there is no economies of scale around that. I think you got to be 200 units deep in a market to have it make sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And actually just from a travel standpoint, right? So if I had properties in Atlanta and the Carolinas and Houston and Dallas, like if you have them all over and you want to go visit those properties, well, that's multiple different flights. That's a lot of time away from my family. I can fly to Atlanta and I can go to every single property in a day and be back home with my kids. Like it's been, once I realized that, and I think Atlanta's a phenomenal market, right? It's not the one maybe that people put at the top of the list, but it's always on the list, and has a tremendous amount of growth, and it's still affordable, right? So it's still affordable, and people are moving there. I just think it's a great market, and will continue to be a great market for some time.
And I think that the last couple of years, Atlanta has been in that top 10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. So
top 10, but it's like, right now people talk about, say, Phoenix or Miami. There are a few other markets they might list as in Austin that are hotter than Atlanta, but Atlanta's always right in the mix. And so to me, what that means is maybe there's slightly less competition for these deals because it's not number one. It's not the one that, every single person is trying to buy deals in, but a lot of people are. So it's kind of, to me, there's a good balance there.
So I have a couple of buddies that are pretty heavily vested in the Atlanta market. And, we always say, follow the smart money. And, these are big property guys. What's your buying criteria around unit size?
Yeah. It has definitely evolved. Initially, initially my mentor said, it's easier to do bigger deals, right? So over 100 units, maybe over 150 units, because of the economies of scale, the property management stuff that we talked about. However, there's one, to me, significant limitation there is the bigger the deal, the more expensive, the higher amount of capital you have to raise. And so to me, that's always been, maybe call it limiting belief. That's always been the thing that has given me some concern about, going bigger, faster. So initially, like I said, I was looking at multiple different markets. I was looking at like anything from 50 units to 250. I had way too big of a criteria. And I think that held me back for the first 6 or 8 months because I wasn't being specific enough. Then I narrowed it down and I started looking basically between, say, 75 units or 50 to 75 units, and then maybe up to 150, but really in that 50 to 100. And so my first 2 deals, one was 76 units and one was 90 units. And those, they just felt more comfortable. Now, having said that and seeing what it takes to run those deals, what it takes to get those deals, it's 100% true that it's going to be the same amount of work or maybe even less work to do bigger deals. So now what I'm looking for is slightly bigger, maybe slightly newer. Yes, it's going to cost more money on a per unit basis, but now I feel a little bit more comfortable with the ability to raise capital. So it's an evolution. It's a process. And so, you see the people out there that are, we just closed another 400 units and things like that. That's motivating and impressive. But you have to recognize in yourself what your own limitations might be, or you need to go get linked up with someone else who doesn't have those limitations and try and, kind of move with them. So it's a bit of a balance, I think.
Yeah. That's awesome. Again, that's economies of scale, right? So,
right. Yeah.
Hey, I got in the business. I never thought that I would do a 200 unit deal. And before I knew it, my first one was 11. And then before I knew it, I was closing 300 and 400 unit deals. So right. It's just a progression, right? Yeah. If you're really committed and you're doing the activity, it's that progression that gets you there. Mm-hmm. So we'd be safe to say you're an active investor, not a passive investor.
Yes. I do both. I also passively invest. I passively invest in all of our deals, and I passively invest in others as well.
Okay. Hey, I might have one you might have an interest in. We're trying to close out a raise in Tampa right now. We're 92% subscribed and just about done with it.
Awesome.
So, as a side note, right?
Yeah.
Just tell my editor, leave that in. Don't take it out.
That's right. Right. Let anyone watching, let them know as well.
Yeah. So obviously we both raise money. Why don't you talk a little bit about the difference between active and passive investing?
Sure. I'll start with passive investor because I think that's probably the easiest one to understand. As a passive investor, you are taking your hard-earned money and you're basically entrusting it to an active investor to put into their deals and put it to work into their deals. And so what you need to do as a passive investor is vet the sponsor first and vet the deal probably second, right? Because you need to be investing with someone you trust. That's an important thing. And so you're making sure that they're someone who you're okay with giving their money. A lot of people talk about track record and stuff like that. There's some criteria, but you have to make those decisions yourself. As a active investor, you're the one finding the deals, getting them under contract, doing the due diligence, getting the financing in place, and raising the capital to purchase those deals. And then you're managing the deals afterwards. And as a passive investor, you only have to worry about yourself. As a active investor, as a sponsor or a general partner, you've got to worry about your team as well as the passive investors. So it's a bigger role to play, I guess, in terms of keeping everything running like a well-oiled machine. But it's I think both sides are great. I mean, my goal eventually, I don't know, 5-10 years, who knows, is to be almost exclusively passive, so that at that point I'm sitting back and I'm just watching my kids play sports or whatever it is, and knowing that we don't have to worry about the bills.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to be said for passive investing. It's that mailbox money.
Yeah.
And as a passive investor, you'll see returns that are, mid to upper teens with a, that include a 7-8% cash on cash return along the way. And for a lot of people, that's attractive. There's people that love their career, love their job, and, want to keep doing it, and, want to be involved in real estate because they know that it's the sexy asset class today. Yeah. So, a lot to be said.
And Mike, I would add to that something that I don't feel like this gets talked about very much. But on a per hour basis of work, I make exponentially more money as a passive investor than I do as an active investor at this point in the game. I think active investors that are well out into their career, 5 or 10 years, have been doing it for a long time, that tide starts to shift, and you'll be, you're starting to realize the equity in some of your deals and things like that. But in terms of what's the work I have to put in, it's a lot easier for me to get that mailbox money, as you mentioned, and really all I had to do was say, okay, here's some money to put it to work, please. So it's something that I've noticed, and I think I still believe in the long run it's going to be better to be, or not better, good in a different way to be an active investor, and I enjoy it. So you really do have to enjoy the process.
Yeah, but you're right. There's a lot of work, and I think people negate that, right? They think, one comment somebody made to me one day was, I can go do this myself and make more money. And I said, okay. You said, well, let's just walk through the list. Okay. So you've got good relationships to source deals. Yeah. You've got a good underwriting tool, and you know how to underwrite and put a stress test on an underwritten deal to make sure it's okay. And you know how to do the due diligence, and you know how to go to contract, and you sound like you can negotiate well. I don't know. Can you write an exit plan? How about a capital improvement plan? And then, by the way, in your spare time, do you have time to read all the documents that come from the attorney and the lender and the insurance company and on the compliance side? That was a big piece for me. Mm-hmm. In putting a team together, we needed somebody on the team that was compliance driven, right? Who could, I fall asleep on page 3 of a 50-page PPM, right? And so I needed somebody who could read through that stuff. Talk about your team a little bit.
Yeah. Well, we've got, so we have the partner group that have put the deals together, and we have It's interesting because I assume that I think this happens a lot, but people kind of partner together in the beginning, maybe without really well-defined roles in terms of, it's like, hey, we want to do a deal. I also want to do a deal. Someone comes. So that's been another thing that's evolved is that with my partners, we've sort of each found what our niche or our superpower is. And I didn't expect this to be mine, but acquisitions became, sort of something that I was good at. I didn't necessarily know that was going to happen. And then one of my partners, he's very good with the underwriting. He's very good with the detail oriented stuff. Like you said, the compliance, the financial statements, all of that stuff that you're protecting the downside, right? Like I'm a dreamer. I'm a facilitator. I'm someone who I think we can always make it work. I think we can, I started this whole thing with what's your word, right? Like hard work. I always think I just need to work harder and it'll be fine, which has served me well, but it's also good to have someone counteracting that. Like, well, what if this happens? Right. So it actually, at first I found that challenging to have those reins put on me, but it's actually, I've realized it's really a good thing. And we have another partner who's very good at capital raising, and then we sort of all share in the asset management. So that's how our team has worked there. And then we have our property management in place in Atlanta. We've used the same group on all the deals. We've used the same attorney. You mentioned all these things. If someone says they're just going to go do it, and I kind of was that person. I've always been a DIY. I've renovated my houses from the studs. I know how to do a lot of that, but it doesn't. You can't do this business by yourself. It's not possible. So it's having all of that in place. The attorneys, the CPAs, the property management, the insurance people. All of that is very important.
Yeah, you're not going to underwrite 50 or 60 deals and then go to contract on a deal and then go out and do the construction on it anyhow. Right. So yeah, you need good, strong teams around you to help build that. So
and the team grows, right? As you grow, you have to grow your team. It's like I'm considering hiring a construction manager because that would be extremely helpful, and it's something that I'm trying to do now. And so it's just, you kind of figure out what you need, and at first you're not generating a lot of revenue, so you're trying to bootstrap everything. And then it's like as you start to do some deals, then you can say, okay, well, I can build my team. And that's why in the beginning you're probably not going to make a ton of money even as the active investor, but you get these systems and teams in place. Now the deals get bigger, and that's when you can start to really realize the fruits of your labor.
Yeah. Is there a one thing I always talk to people about is your skill set, right? Knowing what you're real good at. You've kind of alluded to that, and finding other people to come to the table. What's that one thing that you're super good at?
I'm a really good facilitator. I'm good at being the bridge between challenges, right? So, which is honestly, I think some of this comes from being a surgeon. It's you can't get worked up. You can't lose your cool, and so I stay calm in challenging situations, and I look for solutions. And so that to me is probably what I think I'm strongest at, which I guess that's the kind of CEO role, right? You put the people around you that are the integrators. So I think that's probably my superpower.
I love problem solving, right? And I've always told my staff over the years, hey, come to me with a problem, but come to me with 3 solutions. Yeah. I want to talk about the solutions. I don't want to talk about the problem. We'll figure out the best solution. So I think that makes people a good problem solver.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Are you coming to Chicago for the GOB conference?
I am trying to. We are closing a deal like right then, so it might be a bit of a last minute trip if I can if I can make it fit. But we have a deal under contract set to close like right around there. So it kind of depends on how that all falls into place.
So what are you buying?
70-unit townhome property, also in Atlanta MSA.
Okay, nice. New construction, built to rent type thing?
No, this is a value add as well.
Okay.
It's kind of a C+ class, 1979 it was built, but it's a nice mix of 2 and 3 bedroom townhomes in an area that doesn't have that particular product very prevalent. So I think we'll do really well with demand on that.
Well, I certainly hope to meet you here in Chicago. It's a great place this time of the year, and the weather has been a little hot, but I'm sure not as hot as Atlanta. So
yeah, no, probably not. Probably not as hot and not as humid. Atlanta's pretty brutal in summer.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's been great connecting again. I know I've been a guest on your show and enjoyed that, and we've gotten to know each other here a little bit, and I appreciate that. And we should definitely stay in touch and stay connected. How do people connect with you if they want to reach out and talk with you?
Yeah, they can email me, jason@larkcapital.com, which is on the little banner. They can Instagram is probably, as far as social media, Instagram and LinkedIn is probably my most active. My Instagram is at Lark Capital. I'm Jason Ballara on LinkedIn. You can call me. It's 508-561-3269. It's on, we have a website, larkcapital.com. So really anywhere, but probably email or Instagram are probably the two like easiest ways.
Yeah. Remember the days you could just say, hey, call 411, you'll find me.
Right. Pull out your phone book and look up my name. Yeah, it's a whole different world now for sure.
Hey, so last couple of questions, wind it down a little bit here, but best book you ever read?
Wow, best book. Gosh, I've read a lot of. I'm gonna say Who Not How.
Oh,
I've read a lot of books, but I read that recently, and that really created a mindset shift for me, because, like I said, I've spent 40 some years being a DIY guy and realizing that it's okay to find other people to do things, not just okay, it's better, is going to be a huge help to me in business. So yeah, I'll say Who Not How is what I would go with right now.
a lot of people are recommending that right now. Matter of fact, I had 3 people. I always say if something shows up in my life 3 times, I got to do it.
I've recommended it. I think I've sent it to a few people. I mean, it really is a bit of a game changer if you follow. And it's like, it's well written. It's sort of simple stuff. So it's just little, the examples they use. It's a very well written book.
Yeah. I got it on audio. So, I need that repetitiveness, right?
Yeah.
So, hey, best tourist attraction that you know or have been to?
Hawaii, the island of Kauai. We live in Los Angeles. I really like the city. I've lived in a number of cities. I'm from Boston. We've lived in Houston, Charlotte, and now we live in Los Angeles. And I love the city for all that it provides, all the opportunities. But if I'm going to vacation, I just want to be outside. I just want to be able to go hike. It's funny, like people think of Hawaii and the beach. I don't actually really like to go sit on the beach, but Kauai provides hiking, kayaking. We went zip lining. It's been there a couple times as my wife and I for our honeymoon, and we went back with some friends, and it's a very peaceful place to unwind to me. So I would say that's my favorite place to go.
Wow, very cool. Yeah, thinking about going to Hawaii, so might have to check Kauai out.
Yeah,
been to Maui a few times, but
yeah, like we went to Honolulu, and I was like, well, this is just like LA. There's a beach and there's a city. It's kind of the same. So if I'm going to go away, I want it to at that point to be sort of entirely different.
Yeah, maybe Fiji's next for you.
Yeah. There's lots of places on the list for sure that I would love to go. But yeah, of where I've been, Kauai is definitely top of the list.
Everybody's got that list, that's for sure. So, hey, this has been great. Thanks for your time. Appreciate you. It's always amazing to me how quick the time goes on these things, because I think you get talking about what you really like.
Right.
and what you enjoy. So I'm going to move you. I'm going to move you out and say goodbye. If you want to hang out in the back room for a minute, and you and I'll connect in a second.
Love it. Thanks a lot for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Hey, everybody. Thanks for being here today. And that was my guest, Jason Valera, with Lark Capital. So if you're looking to pick his brain a little bit, reach out to him by email or phone. If you are somebody who's looking at maybe some passive investment options, Jason's a good guy to talk to about that. Want to tell you, we'll be here every Saturday. If you're in Chicago or you're coming to Chicago, the GOB Network MultiFamily group conference is July 13th and 14th. It'll be at the Westin O'Hare. And you know what? If you haven't been to Chicago, or even if you have, there's a lot of great things to do. I'll raise my hand if you're out, but it's going to be a great event coming up here pretty quick. So I look forward to meeting you there or talking to you here soon. If I can do anything for you, answer any questions, help you out on your multifamily journey, whether you're passively investing, whether you're actively investing, don't hesitate to reach out, tell somebody about the show, and we will look forward to seeing you.